I think if people looked at it that way, that they got to be spending that, 8, 9, 10, 12% of their revenue on marketing. Most of it's direct response. Some of it is brand building, but most of it should be direct response and experimenting and looking for lead sources that they've never tried before. Experimenting, looking, being creative. I mean, it not being complacent. I mean, I think if people do those things, that when this boom we're in starts to dissipate and wane, that they'll be situated to continue on and be very successful.
This is the Wealthy Contractor Podcast, brought to you by G4 Marketing. Interviews with today's top home improvement entrepreneurs about marketing, sales, money, mindset, and lifestyle. Now, here's your host, Brian Kaskavalciyan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Wealthy Contractor Podcast. This is Brian Kaskavalciyan with G4 Marketing Group. And with me, I have a return guest. Probably don't tell anybody else, but he's probably my favorite, Mr. Charlie Gindele, formerly from Renewal by Andersen. Welcome, Charlie.
Hi, Brian. Nice to be here again with you.
Yep. Okay. So Charlie, I actually have the numbers this time. So Charlie has been here quite a few times before. He was on episode number 2, episode number 61, episode number 101, and episode number 125. He also, when the virus hit, he was one of the first people I called, and we did a special episode back then as well. So Charlie has been here quite a bit. He's another person I can have on every week, and we would never run out of stuff to talk about. But Charlie now is officially retired. Last time you heard from him, he was still in the throes of running one of the most successful Renewal by Andersen operations in the country. And so now it has been 3 months and a week that you've been retired. How does it feel?
It feels great, Brian. It felt a little weird at first, after hard charging for 50 years and always thinking about work and thinking about what's next and the things you got to do. All of a sudden, have that come to a screeching halt was a little weird. But I got busy doing other things and some traveling and writing a book and spending more time with my wife and playing with my cars and sleeping in a little bit more in the morning and staying up a little bit later at night. And anyway, so it's all good. I'm really enjoying it. And I guess if you really stop and think, there's a reason why we do all the crazy things we do and work the hours we work and take the risks that we take and all. And it's for those gold years, I guess, right? And so I'm enjoying it. I've got some friends, some very close personal friends of mine that are a little bit older than me that I hang with, and they've been good tutors as to what to do. So I'm enjoying it immensely.
You know what we should do?
I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Well, and look, and you did it the right way. You built up an amazing company. It was bought out, and they wrote a nice check, and you did a lot of smart things throughout the years, and now you get to reap those rewards. Now, one thing most of you listening to this don't know is that even though Charlie's retired, and if you can see him on video, he's not at home. He actually has an office, and he calls it WWH, the Worldwide Headquarters. You know what we're going to do, Charlie? I think when I'm there in June, I think we need to do a podcast episode from the Worldwide Headquarters and show everybody Charlie Gindele's Worldwide Headquarters. What do you think about that?
Yeah, let's do it. That'd be great.
I think it would be very cool. Yeah, so we got to do that in June. All right, so Charlie was one of our featured speakers at Accelerate couple months back. And one of the things that we talked about at Accelerate was I kind of started the event off with two big warnings. One of the warnings, and they were both kind of the solutions to both of the warnings was the same. And essentially, we're in a time, an unprecedented time. This is one of the warnings. So we're in an unprecedented time. And mind you, I'm not talking doom and gloom. We're talking opportunity here. These are unprecedented times. I mean, Charlie's been in the business a lot longer than most of us have. So you've seen ups and downs. Have you ever seen an environment like this?
No, I mean, once COVID hit and a couple months, you got into it a couple months, then things came roaring back. I mean, it's been a rocket ship ride ever since then, and I've never seen anything quite like that.
Yeah. And so what happens in times like this is people start to think, oh, this is going to go on forever. Well, we all know that that's not possible. Nothing lasts forever. And so if in the last couple of years, your business has been good, and I hope it has, and I hope you've been making a ton of money. But one of the things is that if you have not prepared your business and shored up your processes and your people and your profit model, when things turn, and they will, and we don't know what that looks like, and we don't know when it's going to happen, but it is going to happen. Are you going to be ready? Are you going to survive? And I did a podcast episode recently on this, Charlie. But what I wanted to talk with Charlie specifically about was marketing. Because again, in the last couple of years, demand has been through the roof. And leads have not been as big an issue as they had been in the past. And what I'm seeing a lot of people do is either they're cutting back on marketing, or they've got this new influx of business that wasn't because of marketing or advertising that they did. It's just because people are desperately looking for people to do work on their homes. And so people don't have enough lead sources. So the thing is when this does contract, which we know it will, the first thing that's going to happen is leads are going to become more expensive. It's going to be harder to make leads. And so what I wanted to talk to Charlie about was the idea of having multiple lead sources, not just one or two, but many. And so, Charlie, let's chat a little bit about that. So first off, I remember when I first met you, I thought, oh my God, this guy is like one of the smartest marketing people that I've seen. And you were doing some really cool stuff, always have. Talk a little bit about marketing, the importance of marketing in the business, and what are some of the things that people should be thinking about today here in the beginning of 2022?
Well, I think that most of us who get into these home improvement remodeling businesses are not marketers by trade or by education. We're marketers out of necessity. And I also read a book years ago, The End of Marketing as We Know It, by a guy named Sergio Zyman, who was the chief marketing officer for Coca-Cola. And he had made a statement in there that he said, marketing is the most essential part of any business. And it really got me thinking a lot about my business. And that's when I was getting back in the, 25, 27 years ago, when I was really becoming a disciple of business planning and planning for the growth of my business and knowing how marketing and lead flow drives that. So I am a big disciple of marketing. I mean, a lot of the marketing tools that are available today are new and different than they were many years ago, but there's still some of the old tried and true direct mail and newspaper and things like that are out there, canvassing. I learned too early on that there's basically two types of marketing. There's brand building marketing where you're just trying to get your name out there and build a brand. I mean, when you see a Coca-Cola ad or a Budweiser ad or a Nike ad, you already know about those companies, and it doesn't make you want to go out and buy a 6-pack of Budweiser, right? But it's building that brand, that top of mind awareness. But for us home improvement contractors, for the most part, what we do and what we need to do is direct response marketing, where we're doing something to generate a phone call or generate an appointment. And I think right now, that maybe is not happening as much because people are gradually, slowly getting deceived into thinking that what's going on now in the marketplace and economy, it's been a rocket ship ride, and leads are there, and customers are lining up, and customers are willing to wait 4, 5, 6 months for an installation, and it's an unusual and very unique situation. But I tell you what it reminds me of. In my former life, back in the late 70s and early 80s, I was worked for Alcoa Building Products, and I was marketing manager. And we had an aluminum shake roofing product that we sold. And actually, Kaiser and Reynolds both had aluminum roofing products, and they really dominated the Texas re-roofing market, where contractors would go in and remove wood shake and wood shingle roofs and install these aluminum roofs. And in the late 70s, Reynolds went out of business and Kaiser got out of the building products business. So all of a sudden, these dealers down there, who were pretty sophisticated dealers and pretty sophisticated marketers, came running to us at Alcoa, wanting to buy our Alcoa Country Cedar Shake roofing. And I got really involved in that. And these guys were some pretty sophisticated marketers. And there was probably about 7 or 8 of them in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area. And I was working with them, and they were starting to sell our product, and things were going good. And then I think it was like the spring of the following year, a hailstorm went through the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it was what they called like a 100-year hailstorm. I mean, I've got pictures of hailstones that are sized of baseballs and softballs.
Wow.
And it destroyed roofs and destroyed a lot of stuff, but it destroyed these wood roofs. And guess what? These guys got so busy that they just shut off their marketing. I mean, they were getting phone calls left and right. They were getting insurance deals, and people were just calling them. And people wanted the aluminum roof because it held up much better in the hail than the wood roofs. That the hail might have dented them, but it didn't penetrate them and go into the attic. And so anyway, and it created more business than these guys could handle. And so for about 2 years, and they had like 1-year backlogs. They had 15-month backlogs of work. People were, they were going out and tarping roofs and say, we'll be out next February to put your roof on, and we'll dry you in and make you weather tight in the interim. And so it was a phenomenon that I had never seen. And these guys had never dealt with that either. So they grew their production, and they gradually scaled up so they could produce more work and eat it into the backlog. But eventually they ate into the backlog, and the new leads coming in from the hail damage went away, and business started to return to normal. But what happened was they got caught, asleep at the switch, because they had completely turned off their marketing, and their marketing had dried up. And all of a sudden, it was like they were new business. They had to start generating leads all over again from the ground up. And a lot had changed in the interim. So that situation, and some of those businesses then didn't make it. While they had a boom time for 2 years, while they couldn't recover once the leads went away and all the good times went away. The guys that did survive, though, were guys that figured it out and got their marketing back up and running, and realized what it took to generate leads. So I think there's probably some people out there now that have kind of been asleep at the switch. You've had your the phone's been ringing almost on autopilot, and you got all the appointments you can handle, and people are willing to wait. But that's going to go away. And I think some of the early signs of that are here right now. I mean, the interest rates are up, mortgage rates are up close to 5% now. And the Fed says they're going to raise interest rates another 5 or 6 times this year, and that's going to result in less affordability for housing, and the appreciation in housing values isn't going to be there, and the easy money isn't going to be there. So I definitely think that, we're in for some sort of recession. I hate to say it, but I think we are. And I think it, probably will start third or fourth quarter of this year. And I think a year from now, the good times that we're enjoying now, the high that we're on now is going to dissipate, and we're going to be, it's going to be struggling time for a lot of people. And if they don't re-engage their marketing and get back to lead generating and direct response marketing, I think they're going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah, so it seems to me like there are kind of two big challenges or issues there. And one is that people are not budgeting enough for marketing. So I'm seeing that a lot, where people are saying, well, I'm only spending 2 or 3% of revenue on marketing. And I'm in shock, because we know that's not enough.
No.
And the other side of that, and then the other thing that's kind of alarming too, is, well, I only got 2 or 3 lead sources. So can you talk a little bit about both of those things, budgets and number of lead sources?
Yeah, I mean, generally we're looking for new customers every month, right?
Mm-hmm.
March is over, April starts. We're looking for new customers every month. We're looking for them every day.
Yeah.
And, but again, with the backlog that people have, some of them are taking the foot off the pedal. And I think that's a mistake. I mean, my experience is that you need to be spending 9, 10, 11, 12% of your revenue on marketing. And you build that into your selling price, and you do it, and to me, the worst thing that could happen is you get some leads in that you can't cover, but again, you're still out there marketing. You're still, even if they don't call you to set an appointment, you're in front of them. You're building your brand. You're top of mind awareness. I have this saying that whatever it is, roofing, siding, windows, doors, bathroom, kitchens, whatever you do, people don't buy that every day, but every day, some people buy that, and one of the things that I learned is that if today's the day that you want to buy windows in Orange County, California, and you don't know about me or my business, we have no shot. But if today's the day and you know who we are, I don't care if you call 1 company or 10 companies, I want to be one of the 10, or I want to be the one you call. If I don't have a chance to sit down and talk to you about your pain, your problems, your possibilities, and show you my solutions, I have not, I lose out on that opportunity. And I know that if I see enough people and can do what we do, that we'll get our share of the business. And it's a mathematical equation. The other thing is that a lot of times people get stagnant in what they're doing. And I have a guy that I know, and I've admired him because he's a great marketer in the home improvement industry. And he told me this years ago, and it sounds pretty simple, but when you think about it, you try to execute it, it's not so simple. His goal is that every year, 20% of his leads will come from new lead sources that he never used before.
Yeah.
And if you think, that sounds simple enough, right? And maybe in the first year, if you're only doing a couple of things, it's easy to do. But to do that consistently year in and year out, and always be, reinventing the wheel, so to speak, and trying to find new lead sources, and they don't all work, or they don't all work as well as you could. But part of marketing is testing too. But I think if people looked at it that way, that they got to be spending that 8, 9, 10, 12% of their revenue on marketing. Most of it's direct response. Some of it is brand building, but most of it should be direct response and experimenting. And looking for lead sources that, they've never tried before. Experimenting, looking, being creative. I mean, it not being complacent. I mean, I think if people do those things, that when this boom we're in starts to dissipate and wane, that they'll be situated to continue on and be very successful. And those that don't are not going to be there. They're going to, there's going to be another cleansing like we had back in the recession. I mean, I lost 30 competitors here in Orange County that I competed with selling replacement windows and doors. They're all gone. And by the way, when we competed with them, our price was always higher than theirs, and yet they're gone. And Renewal by Andersen is still going strong here in Orange County and across the country.
Let's pause here for a quick break. Hey, I've got an exclusive opportunity just for home improvement business owners who want to achieve permanent profitability. You see, in our business, too many contractors are working way too hard and taking home way too little. It happens to a lot of people, too many. It may be where you are now, and it's okay, because none of us were taught how to make money in this business. Sure, we know how to sell jobs. We know how to get those jobs installed, but we were never taught how to properly set up our books, our profit model, our pricing model, and our wealth model. And as a result, too many owners are stuck on the hamster wheel of inconsistent and erratic profitability. This is why I'd like to invite you to our exclusive profit workshop happening September 13th and 14th in West Palm Beach, Florida. Over 2 days, you can join a select group of other business owners and transform your relationship with profitability and wealth attraction by getting a deep understanding of the mechanics of profitability and the mindsets behind wealth. To reserve your seat today, go to www.thewealthycontractor.com/profit. For a limited time, you can use code podcast22. Again, podcast22 to get $300 off your ticket. So go to www.thewealthycontractor.com/profit. When you're there, you'll get all of the information about the event, plus you'll learn about our better than risk-free guarantee. Seating is extremely limited, so don't delay. Secure your spot at the Profit Workshop now. And now back to this week's episode. Is there a number of lead sources that you would say is like a minimum number of sources?
I think some of that depends on the size of the business, but I would say, probably a minimum of 4 or 5. And, you could have 30 or 40. I mean, now there's a new thing, digital marketing, right? I mean, that just is a whole new frontier and all types of opportunities with the social media opportunities on Facebook and things like that. And a lot of the digital marketing and internet with all kind of opportunities and lead aggregators. I mean, that's the stuff that didn't exist 10 years ago. And now and actually, quite frankly, when COVID hit, remember in March of, was it 2020, and when it hit and, the world as we knew it was coming to an end and things were being shut down and we're wondering if our businesses were going to be ruled to be essential or whatever, the phones just stopped ringing. It was very much after, like we had after 9/11. For a week after 9/11, the phones just didn't ring. But then about a week or 10 days later, things started picking back up. Well, the same thing happened with COVID, except it was longer. Because now people are hunkered down in their homes, and you drove on the freeways, and there's no cars on the freeway. But about 3 to 4 weeks into COVID, I know the marketing folks at Renewal by Andersen figured out some whole new lead generating sources using social media, Facebook, things like that. And they actually were able to generate more leads at a lower cost than we were finding.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember you and I talked about that.
So you talk about making lemonade out of lemons. Yeah. I mean, it was really a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
I mean, because things shut down for 3 weeks or so. And then all of a sudden, about the fourth or fifth week, it just took up and it took off. And it was like business was better than it had ever been. And we found all these new sources of generating leads that had a lower cost per lead issued than a lot of the traditional stuff that we had been doing. The other thing is, at that time, we got about 25 to 30% of our leads from canvassing and events. Well, as soon as COVID hit, the events dried up in one weekend. All the events got canceled, and it didn't seem politically correct to be sending people knocking on the homeowners' doors, when this is worldwide virus going around, and everybody was freaked out. So we lost about 30% of our lead flow from the canvassing and events just going away almost overnight. And yet through these new lead sources that, I don't know if it was a stroke of genius or a stroke of luck, but that they found, we were able to not only make up for the 30% that we had lost in canvassing and events, but go beyond that and at a lower cost.
Yeah.
But if you're not in the game, if your head's not in the game from a marketing standpoint, you're going to be reacting to that versus be proactive doing that.
Yeah. As a point of reference, it's a little tough because you have a bigger business than most, but just for point of reference, how many lead sources did you have just a few months ago at your RBA store?
I know this, from internet and any kind of print, direct mail, shared mail, newspaper, anything like that. We had dedicated phone numbers, right? Tracking numbers, so we could track when the calls came in. And we had well over 50 dedicated phone numbers.
Yeah.
So I would say at any one time we had 30 to 40 active sources, maybe more.
Yeah. So, and think about that. I mean, I think that most any business, regardless of size, I mean, you got to have it, like you said, 4 to 5 is a bare minimum. You got to push up to 8, 9, 10. What are some of the ones that like almost anybody and everybody should have?
Well, I mean, there's some people that I've heard people say direct mail is dead, but direct mail is not dead.
No.
And there's two basic types of direct mail. There's shared mail, which is when you go out in a coupon envelope or, a local home improvement magazine, and you run a half page or full page ad. I mean, that stuff works, Now, one thing I always like to tell people too is the fact that you buy the space and you run the ad and pay the money doesn't exactly assure you success, because number one, you're still responsible for the creative part of your ad and the message and the offers and the compelling reasons to pick up the phone and call now. The vendor is not going to say to you, Brian, this is a terrible ad, we're going to knock 50% off of it.
Right.
Or they're not going to say this is a phenomenal ad, we're going to charge you 50% more. You pay the going rate, whether it's a terrible ad or a great ad. So you always want to excel in your messaging and your promotions. And I always use the term ammo. Marketing is like hunting, and when you go hunting, you need ammo. And the AMMO stands for A is the audience you're trying to reach. So there's a particular type of marketing reach your target audience. One is the media. Does that media you're using reach that audience? The second and the third one is message. What's your message? And then the O, it stands for offers. What are your offers? What are your compelling reasons to?
That's really good.
So ammo, AMMO, AMMO.
Did you make that up?
I did. Yours,
Charlie Gindele thing.
That's a Charlie Gindele thing. AMMO.
That's
audience,
good.
Media, message, and offer. But so again, the tried and true ones. So you got the shared mail, which are easy to get into. You can buy specific zones or zips around your territory. It's kind of more of a shotgun approach. Then you can do highly targeted direct mail, which goes to certain demographics or whatever. It's going to be more expensive, but you can, it's a postcard. It's a direct mail piece. It might be Now a lot of people are doing like it looks like a handwritten envelope with a handwritten message. They're real popular, but they're very effective. Uh, newsprint still works. I mean, you can buy some remnant spaces. You can do for some performance based advertising where they run the ad and they track the leads, and you pay for the phone calls, or you pay for the percentage pay a percentage for the business you get. A lot of the newspapers that are still around are somewhat viable, so there's that type of stuff going on. The oldest profession, second oldest profession in the world is canvassing, right? Knocking on doors. And that's coming back now that COVID's waning. And that's something people are doing. Events are starting to take place now. People want to get out of their house and they go to street fairs and festivals, and there's some home shows starting to take place. Another good one is retail. That's where you set up a little booth at a hardware store or a grocery supermarket or somewhere, and you just interact with people, and usually they're non-competitive leads. So there's and then obviously some simple stuff like signage on your vehicles, job signs, uniforms, doing things like that to build the brand and put your number out there. I mean, that's some low cost entry level stuff. Obviously, websites and landing pages and pay-per-click and SEO and that type of stuff they're all basic stuff that people should be doing.
Yeah.
If you're not doing those things, you're missing opportunities. You're leaving dollars on the table.
Yeah. The most successful people in any business, and I just for all the listeners, think about it this way. You are not in the window or kitchen business or whatever thing you sell. You are in the marketing of that. Marketing and selling is what this business is really all about. I love this ammo thing. I can't believe I've known you for this long and I've never once heard you say ammo. So you just talked about one of the M's, which is media, right? How do you get to the audience?
Right.
Messaging is a whole nother long conversation that probably deserves its own episode. But let's wrap up here with your offer. This is a place that I see people really struggle. Like, what should my offer be? What's good? What works? How do you come up with your offers?
Well, I learned this probably 20 years ago. You may remember there was a guy out here in Southern California called I forget his name. It was the king of big screen TVs.
Oh yes, I remember that guy.
I forget his first name now. Paul,
yes.
The king of big. This guy had one location in La Habra,
Yep.
which is in Orange County, and he was the number one. Now this is before all the flat screen TVs that are out there now you can buy. But this is when these Mitsubishi rear projection TVs were really big back in the 80s and early 90s. And this guy had one store in La Habra, and he was the largest seller of big screen TVs in the country, more than Best Buy and Circuit City and people like that. And this guy was on TV and radio. He had newspaper ads. But I learned that every weekend, he had a reason to come in and buy a TV. Like this week, right now, I'd be advertising. Last week, it was going to have your TV in your home for the Big Four, the Final Four, right? The NCAA basketball tour. This week, it would be have it there for the Masters. Would have been have it there for the Academy Awards. It'll have it there for start of Major League Baseball. Every week, he had a compelling reason to come in and buy a big screen TV. And I used to think, well, don't people look at these ads and say every week this guy's got a reason to buy a TV? But the reality of it is people got, kind of immune to it. But if you were in the market, you saw that message. And he always had an offer, dollars off, percentage off, free upgrades, whatever, So I learned a lot from studying Paul, the king of big screen TVs. And I realized that, Paul was my competitor. I mean, Paul wasn't selling windows and I wasn't selling big screen TVs, but Paul was selling $3,000 or $4,000 TVs. And back then I was selling $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 window jobs. And Paul, and we were both selling this big, durable, expensive items. And Paul had more reasons and more ways to pay for it than I had reasons to buy my windows or ways to pay for it. So and then I looked at car dealers. Every weekend, car dealers have reasons. The big car dealers have reasons to come in and buy a car that weekend, right? And so I studied that and I learned from that. And that's really what I realized. I had to become a retailer of home improvements, not a home improvement contractor. And that was the marketing part of it. And so I learned from the offers that they had. And you could say, do you want 6 or you want a half dozen? You could say the same thing different ways. And they would say the same thing, but they'd have it packaged differently so that this weekend it was different than last weekend, and next week it'll be different than this weekend. And just learning that and studying that, is what led me to become a retailer of home improvements versus just a home improvement contractor.
So I don't know if you know this or not, but you were the inspiration for one of my most successful campaigns ever. I don't remember if it was that one infamous meeting that I had with you, or if it was some follow-up meeting or something, but you were advertising a January white sale.
Yeah.
Do you remember this? Okay.
Yeah.
And you said something to the effect of, if Macy's can do it, why can't I do it?
Right.
And back then, in my home improvement company, February was the worst month. January was it was okay. We kind of broke even in January, but in February, we would always lose money. And it pissed me off year after year. And when you told me that, I thought, whoa, wait a minute. Instead of my allowing January and February to be bad, what can I come up with that's creative, that's really designed to drive business in February, some in January, but some in February. And I came up with I won't go into all of it here, but I came up with a 3-step campaign that killed. Ever since, and the one year I didn't do it, I remember, I was so upset the one year I didn't do it. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, that's really good, actually. Wow, to think about it that way.
Well, the thing that happened, one of my transformations in business was that I really, to grow the business, to scale it up once I got a lot of other things in place, I really had to become a marketer and I had to think like a marketer. So I began studying what other successful marketers did. And I realized that most of my home improvement competitors were bozos.
Right.
They were not very sophisticated. But I could see what a guy selling big screen TVs or a guy selling cars, or furniture could do. And why couldn't I emulate what they were doing? And they were, and many times, the customer had so much money to spend and they bought a big screen TV, they bought windows, they bought a windows, or they bought a car, and so how could I emulate what they were doing and create a reason for customers to do it now? And that was with offers and payments and learning to self-financing and monthly payments. And so as part of my maturization, I guess you could say, as I went from being a contractor to a businessman to a retailer of marketer of home improvements, and it's part of that journey, and so if people do that, regardless of what's going on around the outside of them, things you can't control, we want to still be able to control the things we have control over. And sometimes we lose sight of that. There's a lot we don't have control over. And this boom that's going on now, it's happened, whether we wanted it to or not. But it's going to be short-lived. It's going to go away. It's going to slowly recede. And then what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it? And we got to keep our axe sharp so that we can still continue to be successful. And controlling the things we have control over, and not worrying about the external things we have no control over.
Awesome. Well, Charlie, this was great. I think for sure we got to do the thing in June. And I'm gonna have you back again. One of the things I'm gonna do this year, I don't know if I've mentioned it here or not, is I'm gonna keep going back to my friends like Charlie, like I had Brian Gottlieb on recently. I'm gonna have my friend Scott Berman back on again. And because these guys have so much to share, and giving them just like half an hour to do it is usually not enough, because this is a 2-hour conversation, 3-hour conversation that Charlie and I can have. So I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to be, especially since you're retired now, we'll put you to work. We'll put Charlie to work. So thank you, Charlie. I appreciate you. Thanks for being here again.
Brad, it's always a pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.
All right, everybody. So until next time, this is Brian Kaskavalcian with G4 Marketing Group, and this is the Wealthy Contractor Podcast. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Wealthy Contractor Podcast. Let me ask you, did it help you look at your business in a different way? Did it spark an idea or ideas that you hadn't thought of before? Do you have a list of action items that you can take and implement into your business or your life today? I really hope so. If it did, I'd like to ask you a favor. Would you leave a 5-star review of the podcast? By doing so, you'll help other contractors find the podcast more easily so that we can help them achieve more success, wealth, and freedom. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to the Wealthy Contractor Podcast so you get access to the latest episodes as soon as they're available. We're always striving to provide you with great content, so you don't want to miss what's coming up. In fact, if you haven't already, make sure you go to thewealthycontractor.com and get your free copy of my latest book, The 7 Secrets to Becoming a Wealthy Contractor. Just pay shipping and handling, and I'll take care of the cost of the book. And finally, a big thanks to G4 Marketing for sponsoring the Wealthy Contractor Podcast. For over 12 years now, G4 Marketing has been the secret back office relationship marketing team for hundreds of home improvement and home service businesses just like yours. You get the customer, and our proven system turns that customer into 5-star reviews and profitable repeat and referral business. If your home improvement or home services company completes at least 10 jobs per month, they have a solution that will work for you. To find out more, sign up for your free, no obligation, 10-minute discovery call at www.gfourmarketing.com/strategy. That's GFOUR marketing.com/strategy. Set your discovery call up today, and they'll help you set your business up for long-term profits and success. So until next time, this is Brian Kaskavalcian.